Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the differences in reloading dies. Most instructional videos that you're going to find are going to talk about the Lee set, but I wanted to show you a different set of dies that I've got that do things a little bit differently. With the Lee, what you end up with is the first die is a decapping and sizing die. And you'll notice that little ring right there. That shows that this has a carbide insert. Okay, and this is the most common one that you're going to run across. But some dies, like this older Pacific die set that I've got, the first die is actually strictly a sizing die. You'll notice no carbide insert in this one, so you have to use case lube on this. Your second die on this particular unit is for decapping and expanding, okay, as opposed to the Lee set, which has just an expander die that you can charge powder through. Okay, and then the last die on both of them is a bullet seating and crimping die. Okay, and then there's two adjustments that you have to perform with this. Okay, same thing with the older Pacific dies. Okay, so in the next video we're going to go through setting up the dies for reloading with the Pacific set, and we'll show you how that works. Okay, the first thing we need is the proper shell holder, and this is one that came with my die set for the 44 Magnum. And we're going to go ahead and put that in our die. And there we go, and then we're going to run it all the way up to the top. Okay, and our first die, our resizing die, take and screw that all the way in until it just touches the shell holder. And we're going to lock down the lock ring. Okay, these are really nice because they've got a split ring with a set screw. Okay, and you can see, I'll show you how they work. Basically a split ring with a screw that tightens it down. So once these things are locked in, they're not going anywhere. So once you've got everything set up for the round that you're loading, it makes it really easy to switch out dies and not have to readjust everything all the time. Okay, so the first thing is going to be lubricating the cases, since these are not carbide dies. And basically what I did is took my cases and put them in this little shell holder here, and just basically gave them a shot with the one shot and let it dry for a couple minutes. And once that's done, you can tell that there's kind of a slick film on there, and that's all the lube that you need. Now these are kind of finicky. You gotta kind of guide them into place. Okay, so we're just going to do a couple of these, just so you get the idea of how the resizing process goes. And sometimes when you run some really hot loads through there, these things can be a real bear to resize. Alright, so there's our 3 cartridges that we're going to be working with today, and those have been successfully resized, and we're going to go ahead and do the next step now. Okay, our next step after we've resized is we need to check the overall length. And I like to take mine down to about 1 inch, 275 thousandths or thereabout. And some of these are a little long. And so what we've got is a case trimmer, and there's a couple ways you can do this. I happened across this case trimmer at a yard sale, believe it or not, and the only thing I had to buy was the proper basically mandrel to center the 44 Magnum brass. And so basically what I've done is I've taken a few cases and trimmed them a little bit at a time and measured them, and then when I got to the measurement that I wanted, I locked all my adjustments down. So the final adjustments go pretty quick, and let me show you how this works. Get that in there a little bit, center it, tighten it down, and then you just give it a little spin. And you see it usually doesn't take very much brass off, but it does leave some burrs, so we need to do a little deburring. And that was the inside and the outside. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Let's see how our measurement turned out. And let's see, 1 inch, 275 and a half. So that's going to be close enough for me. And now we can go on to the next step. Okay, so the next die we're going to be using is the expander decapper on this particular set. Let's go ahead and get that adjusted. And just like the first one, we're going to have to run the ram all the way up. And then we're going to take the die all the way in until it just touches. And then we're going to tighten this down. And then we'll snug up our little adjusting ring. Alright, so what we're going to need to do is expand this brass, and I want you to notice how straight it is after sizing and trimming. Okay, and then what we're going to do, with this backed almost all the way out, I'm going to go ahead and run that all the way up. Okay, and we're going to start bringing that in, turn it a little bit, go back in, and we're just going to keep an eye on the brass until it starts to flare. Okay, well, if you can notice the difference now, there's an ever so slight flare, and that right at the top, and that's about as far as we want to go. So we're going to go ahead and lock this down, and then we can just repeat the process with all of our brass, and it'll all be ready for seating. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we want to clean out the primer pocket. You'll notice there's some grit and soot in there, and the way we clean that out is with a tool like this. Okay, it's got two different sizes for large and small primers. Okay, just give it a few little twists. And you'll notice almost all that black soot is gone. And it's just that simple. Just repeat that with all the rest of your brass, and we'll be ready to seat our primers. Okay, now we're going to prime those cases that we've already expanded and cleaned the primer pockets on. We're using CCI large pistol primers this time, and a Lee hand prime. Basically, you want to use the correct shell holder, slide it in there. Make sure you're pointing it away from you and push it down until it's seated. Okay, when you take it out, you want to make sure and take a look. Make sure it's not seated too high, and you can give it a little feel with your finger. After a while, you get a feel for what the correct seating depth feels like, and you'll also get a feel for how it feels to how much you have to push on the hand prime tool in order to seat them. I've noticed, as I've been doing these, I've been able to tell when one goes in sideways or doesn't go in all the way, and I can tell just by feel. And you get kind of a feel for how easy or hard it is to push those primers in after a while. And pretty simple. That's about it. Okay, this last step is going to be adjusting our bullet seating and crimping die. And this is the one that's the hardest for everybody to get a hold of, and it took me quite a few tries to get everything just right. Basically, we have to seat the bullet first to get our depth, and then back that adjustment out, adjust our crimp, and then make our final adjustment where it'll do both things simultaneously. So we're going to start off by turning our bullet seating adjuster all the way in. Okay, we're going to take one of our prepped cases. This one has no primer. I'm going to use this one as a dummy round. I'm going to put our bullet on top and run it up inside. Okay, so run that down till it just touches the bullet, and then we'll make minor adjustments until we get the seated depth right where we want it. Basically looking to line up the cantilever with the top of the case. And we're getting pretty close. Okay, it's right about where we want it. See if we can get that to focus a little better for you. See just a little bit of the cantilever peeking through right at the top of the case. Now that gives us our depth. Now we're going to back this adjustment back off. And we're going to back the bullet seating all the way out. Put our cartridge back in. Bring it all the way up. Turn this in until it just makes contact. Okay. Down with the ram a little bit, in. Alright. So now we've got our taper, our roll crimp properly set. So now we're going to back this off a little bit, put our cartridge back in. Now we're going to make both of our adjustments so that they happen at the same time. We're going to take this die down where it stops against the case, and then put our adjusting lock ring in place. Okay, and we're going to take our bullet seating adjustment, take that down until it just touches, and lock it down. Okay, that should get us pretty good with our loaded rounds. To make sure, we'll make one more dummy round, and we'll see how that works out. Take our bullet, kind of guide it into place. And there we go. Seated and crimped. As you can see, even with a single stage press, once you get everything adjusted, things go pretty smoothly, and it doesn't take long to load quite a bit of ammunition. And not only is it relaxing to sit out here at the reloading bench, it sure is a lot of fun to go shoot this stuff. So if you have any questions, just leave me a comment. Thank you.